Good morning, fathers of daughters. This is Ephraim B. Martin, and welcome to another live stream. Welcome, all fathers, regardless of your ethnic group and your culture. How are we doing today, fathers? It's a Sunday, 11 o'clock in the morning. Hopefully you fathers will be able to tune in and participate. So fathers, we have another good live stream going on today. And what we're going to be talking about today, fathers, is girl dads, our tone with our daughters. Let me repeat that. Girl dads, our tone with our daughters. Now, fathers, I'm not here today or any other day to try to tell you how to raise your daughters. That's not my job. That's not my position. But what I am here to do is provide you educational and information to help you make better informed decisions. So that's why we're here today. And what we're going to be discussing, it may trigger some fathers, and I'm okay with that. That's not my goal to trigger any fathers, but I just think we need to really take a look at when we're dealing with our daughters and their mothers or any woman. Tone is everything, fathers. Tone is everything. Tone is going to set the difference between our daughters being effective positively or negatively. And that's just what it is. In the description, all videos that I'm using today are all fair use videos. They're all in the description of this live stream. I also included one of my own videos called Advocacy versus Discipline of Our Daughters. And that's also in the description. And I go into a little bit more detail in regards to tone and yelling and raising our voice and things of that nature. So that's also in the description. As far as when it comes to our daughter's tone, fathers, it's very important in how we address our daughters, because they are going to either, like I said, they're going to react positively or negatively, depending on how we address them. Now, when I do a lot of men's groups, online and in person, and when I'm talking to a lot of fathers just don't get this part of it, and they try to push back on it, and they try to explain to me, Ephraim, raising your voice, a lot of times, it gets the attention and things of that nature. So that's fine. I'm not going to try to change any father's perspective when it comes to how they address their daughters. But what I do know from working in the criminal justice system, as well as working in K-12 education, our delivery is going to be more important than what's being said. You see, what I've learned from working with children for 30 years, 20 years in the criminal justice system, 10 years in K-12 education, is that kids respond to, I do for you, you do for me. That's the system that they respond to, and that's the system that they're on. So fathers, when it comes to our very own daughters, our daughters need to be very clear on how we're talking with them and how we're addressing them. Also their mothers, right? Women are going to respond to a man's voice either feeling safe or in fear, depending on how they're being dressed by men. We set the tone of that, men. We set the tone of that, fathers, right? So, like I said, when I do a lot of these men's groups, a lot of these fathers, you can't tell them shit. You can't tell them shit, because so many fathers think that they know everything, right? And I'm not in the business of arguing with fathers. I'm not in the business of fighting with fathers, particularly when I've raised 4 adult daughters. 35, 29, 26, and 23. And all my daughters are fine, and they're doing well in their lives. So I don't get into the back and forth when I'm talking about tone when it comes to our daughters. Like I said, so many fathers want to push back on that. And they actually want to argue and they want to fight with me. So I don't get into those types of battles. I present information. I present my, excuse me for a second, I got to adjust my webcam. Okay. I present my information as far as me being a father and raising 4 adult daughters, using myself as an example. And then I present studies to fathers as well. I have 4 great videos today I want to share with you fathers regarding the effects of yelling at our children and what that does to our children. I've never yelled at my daughters. I've never had to raise my voice at my daughters, birth to 18 years of age. And a lot of fathers, when I come into contact with them, and I'm explaining to them that I've never had to do that, they look at me like I'm crazy. And a lot of them question my parental style. A lot of them question my parental sincereness, because so many men, depending on how they were raised by their own fathers, we have this part of us being men. We have this in us to command through our voice, which I don't have a problem with when you're addressing other men. But when you're addressing women, and when you're addressing young women, and when you're addressing our daughters, your tone has to be totally different, or you're going to lose them. That's just what it is, gentlemen. And like I said, me never having to raise my voice at my daughters or having to yell at them, it's because I'm disciplined, right? And I just learned from working in the criminal justice system how to address children. I learned from working in K-12 education how to address children. And the one thing I know about kids is if you don't meet them where they're at, they're not interested in talking to you as an adult. So with that being said, fathers, my overall goal when it comes to Grow Dad YouTube channel is to help all fathers understand our sense of urgency that we must have in order to build long-term, sustainable relationships with our baby girls. That's my ultimate goal, because I understand my purpose. So, fathers, we have a great opportunity to shape our daughters into beautiful young women. We have a great opportunity to show them another side of men, because we're leading them. And when our daughters are being led by their fathers and they're feeling protected and safe, amazing things will happen in their lives. So that's one of my goals, fathers, is to help us understand our sense of urgency and to build those long-term sustainable relationships with our baby girls. Now, all fathers aren't going to agree with what I present, which is fine. Not all fathers are going to accept what I present, which is fine as well, too. You can always do your own research, and I encourage you to do it. But what I do know, raising 4 successful daughters, I got it right. And I would never tell any other father, you need to do it my way. Okay, the way I worked with my daughters was because of my experience of working in the criminal justice system in K-12 education. So I had direct access to children every day, all day. So I have a totally different perspective. I have a totally different approach. But what I did learn from children and what they taught me was if you do not meet them where they're at, and if you do not listen to them, and if they do not invite you into their world, they will shut you down. That's how kids get down. That's how kids work. So, like I said, fathers, we have an opportunity to show our daughters another side. And I would encourage all fathers, regardless of your ethnic group and regardless of your culture, to just sometimes just take a step back and reflect in the mirror sometimes as a father. How do we get this thing right? Okay, because we're learning. Most of us have never raised baby girls. The majority of men have never been in contact or expected to raise a baby girl. So when you get one, you have an opportunity to set incredible examples on what that looks like. So that's what I want to encourage all fathers to do. Okay? All right. So let's take a look at this first video. I have 4 that I want to share with you fathers today. All right, let me get it set up here, fathers.
Today's medical-centric topic is the long-lasting effects of yelling at your kids, understanding the impact on child development. Parenting is a challenging journey, and every parent may find themselves raising their voice at their children from time to time. While occasional frustration and raised voices are normal, frequent or intense yelling can have significant and long-lasting effects on children. In this video, we will explore the impact of yelling on child development and offer insights into alternative and positive parenting strategies. 1. Emotional impact. Three. Set clear expectations. Establish clear boundaries and expectations for your child's behavior. Be consistent with consequences and positive reinforcement. 4. Teach problem-solving skills. Help your child develop problem-solving skills to handle challenging situations effectively. 5. Lead by example. Model positive behavior and coping mechanisms for your child. Show them how to manage emotions constructively. Yelling at children can have profound and lasting effects on their emotional, behavioral, and cognitive development. As parents, it is crucial to recognize the impact of our actions and adopt positive parenting strategies that foster a nurturing and supportive environment. By practicing patience, active listening, and positive discipline techniques, parents can build strong, healthy relationships with their children and support their overall development. Remember that effective communication and understanding are essential in guiding children through life's challenges and helping them grow into confident and emotionally resilient individuals.
Thank you for watching our video. Please do not forget to like and share the video. Also, please subscribe to the channel to stay updated on our latest videos.
Today's medical-centric topic is
Okay, fathers, I apologize. I think I have my Instagram up as well as when I do my live stream, I do 5 different platforms at once. So I think I accidentally went in between my Instagram and the actual video. So I apologize for that if that screen was showing for a portion of the video. So I apologize for that. But pretty much the video, as you can see, the effects of yelling at our children. It's not good, right? Now, I know there's a lot of fathers that were raised in families where they were yelled at. I know there's a lot of mothers that were raised in families that were yelled at. I was never yelled at as a child by my mother. I was raised in a single parent household by default by my mother because my father was murdered when I was 2 years of age, 2.5 years of age, almost 3 is when my father was murdered. So I was raised in a household with a single mother. I'm the baby of 5 children. And my mother was the most incredible woman to walk the face of the earth. She was nurturing. She was a great human being, rest in peace. And she was just a nurturer by her nature. She was just a great nurturer. So I've never been yelled at in my life. Therefore, I never yelled at my children. And I can remember being a child, being a young boy, and just how my mother would always, she always explained things to me. I was a very active kid. I was an athletic kid. I played sports. That was my thing. So I was always at the recreation center. I played sports year round. So I was always busy. And my mother was she was an incredible woman. And she just provided an environment that was safe. And I learned a lot from her. So becoming a father myself of all baby girls, I wanted to make sure that my daughters understood from their father that yelling wasn't okay. And like I said, I never yelled at them. I never raised my voice. I'm going to be doing a live stream with my daughters. Hopefully this summer. I got to get them all together because they're all got crazy schedules working and doing their professional things. But I want to do a live stream with my adult daughters, and I want it to be a live question and answer, and let my followers, my subscribers, ask my daughters whatever they want. I won't say a word. I'll let you ask my daughters whatever they want about their father, and my daughter's going to tell you the truth. The one thing they're going to tell you is I never raised my voice at them, and I never yelled at them. That's never been a part of my personality. It's never been a part. I'm too laid back of a human being, and not much gets to me. And I loved fatherhood, so I just did. I went through fatherhood with each one of my daughters as a blessing. Fatherhood is stressful. Fatherhood is challenging. It's never going to be easy when you're a father of baby girls. It just isn't, and it's not meant to be. But I had an opportunity to show my daughters another side of men and what to expect from men and young boys, because I set that standard, I set that example. And yelling it doesn't get anything done. Fearful children will never respond accordingly to their parents. They're just not going to do it, because if they're fearful of you when they're little, they too have defense mechanisms. They know how to shut their bodies down. They know when they don't feel protected and safe. So like I said, fathers, I'm not trying to tell you how to raise your daughters. Not my job. We do have an opportunity, though, to show our daughters the other side and let them know that yelling at them is the easiest way to lose the relationship of the father-daughter relationship. It's very simple. If you raise a child in fear, I can promise you it's never going to turn out good. Because when they become adults, I have a lot of adult friends. Their children don't even mess with them. Their adult children, sons and daughters, they don't talk to them. They don't even mess with them because of their trauma that they experienced when they were little. And they've decided as adult children, they're not fooling with their parents. And that's just crazy to me. I don't understand it. I don't accept it, but that's what it is for a lot of adult children. And I know particularly little girls, because they suppress things when they're little, and when they grow into young women and become adult women. When young girls become adult women and they decide they ain't messing with their parents, they cut you off. They don't fool with you. They just don't. They go about their life. They thank you for what you gave them. And that's what it is. Because as adult women, they figure out, you know what? I'm no longer under that household. I don't have to listen to them anymore. And I didn't like how it turned out for me. So guess what? I don't have to fool with them. And I don't think that is healthy, because eventually we all want our daughters to end up married and having grandbabies, and so we can become grandparents. I know I'm looking forward to becoming a grandparent. I have 4 adult daughters. So, once they get married and have husbands, I'm looking forward to being a grandpa. And my daughters already know the way they were raised, my grandchildren is going to be 10 times worse. So they're going to be mad at me, and that's okay, because when you earn that right as a grandparent, those are your grandbabies. Your job as a grandparent is to love the babies, your grandchildren, spoil your grandchildren, and then send them back home to their parents. I know that's what happened to me and my baby girls. Their grandparents did that to them, and just had to deal with it. So that's what it is. Grandparents are amazing, and they're wonderful, and we need them in our life. They're part of the village, right? So, fathers, I'm just hopeful that many of you fathers will take this information and be objective about it, not personalize it and feel like you're being attacked and, that sort of thing. We can always learn. We're in learning mode. That's what's going to make us better as fathers. That's what's going to make the father-daughter relationship good, to be able to withstand the test of time. I have an incredible relationship with all my daughters, and I'm just happy to see them sisters when I see them. And I talk to them all the time, and just making sure they're doing well. And I got a lot of things right. In fatherhood. So that's all we're doing, fathers, is sharing information and trying to become better as fathers. That should be our goal. One of our goals is to become better as men. That's our commonality. Okay. Let me get this next video set up, fathers.
Parents often
Okay, fathers, let's see where I'm at. All right, video number 2. Here we go.
Parents often raise their voices at their kids when the situation gets a bit frustrating, but could it be detrimental? To yell or not to yell? That is the question many parents ponder. Raising children is an art that's hard to master, with experts suggesting radically different approaches that seemingly change every day. But can yelling at your kids actually harm them? Some research has been emerging that says raising your voice at your children may be as damaging as physical abuse. How bad can this age-old parenting tool really be? And where do we draw the line? Parenting experts Dr. Deborah Gilbo and Amy McCready join us now. And I want to thank you both for being here because you have slightly different perspectives on this. And Amy, I want to start with you. Is it ever okay for a parent to yell at their kid?
Well, yelling should only be used in situations of, extreme danger when you really need to get their attention. Yelling should never be our go-to discipline strategy because it doesn't work to change behavior long term. Otherwise, parents wouldn't be yelling at their kids over and over for the same thing. But as it said in the piece, there's new research that shows that the effects of yelling can actually be as harmful as that of spanking.
So you're saying if their child is running out into traffic or trying to touch fire, yell in that situation. But aside from extreme situations like that, yelling is a no-go.
It is a no-go. And you're right. When you need to get their attention, you yell and you yell loud. But what happens is that if we're yelling all the time, kids become parent deaf, meaning they tune us out. So when we need to get their attention, we kind of train them that they don't have to listen until we yell, because then they know we're really serious.
But that puts us in this spot of saying to parents, it's as dangerous to yell at kids as it is to hit kids. That tells me two things as a parent. That means if I yell, I've failed. It's like I'm beating my kids. And that's just not true. And it also sets me up as a parent to feel like, well, I'm super frustrated with this child and I already yelled at them. I might as well give them that spanking. And that's also not reasonable because we know that spanking is damaging pretty much every single time. And we don't know that yelling is dangerous every single time.
Yeah, and I think, don't you think it comes down to frequency and intensity? So every parent on the planet yells from time to time. But if you find that you're yelling every day, multiple times a week, and then those interactions are angry and intense, I think that's where we have to look at it and say, okay, is this having harmful effects on our kids? And is it really working to change the behavior?
But to say yelling is as bad as physical abuse, I want to talk about that a little bit because to me, it seems like there's a difference. But if you're thinking that yelling at your kids when they were younger was the same as hitting them,
I know I didn't think that way at all. But to their point, then when I did break down a little bit and yell, I did feel bad about it. Like I could have handled that in a better way.
But that's a great opportunity because we do mess up as parents. And so when we yell at our kids, then what happens? Well, two things. They learn. Sometimes people yell and you don't have to crumble, because if I never ever yell at my kid, then they get out in the world and a coach or a teacher or somebody else's parent or a boss yells at them, probably doesn't spank them, but yells at them. And this way they go, oh yeah, this happens, right? It's not necessarily me, or right, okay, maybe they'll apologize, maybe they won't, but they'll have the skills to handle it, of getting yelled at. But also, I get to apologize to my kid when I handle something badly, whatever it is. If I told a story they didn't want me to tell in front of someone else and they were upset about that, or I yelled at them because I lost it a little bit, we get the practice and the modeling of the resilience of apologizing and reconciling. And how are my kids going to learn that if I don't allow myself to be human ever?
Yeah. And again, all parents are going to yell from time to time. And I love using that opportunity as a teaching moment for your kids when you do mess up. So I think the way we handle misbehavior, as I said, week in and week out, that really teaches them how they're going to communicate and deal with difficult situations as they arise.
Absolutely. And I think overall, when it comes to kids, yelling is overutilized, but I don't know that a lot of parents will be able to give it up altogether. It's like, put the toy down, put the toy down, put the toy down, put the toy down. And, and that third one, when you raise the voice, finally they put the toy down. But I think also what you yell is very important. So if you're yelling, put that toy down, that's different from saying, put that toy down, you whatever person, like something derogatory.
Well,
Okay, fathers, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on that, fathers? Because I know a lot of families, know a lot of dads, they don't like hearing from other professionals that are doctors, psychologists, or anyone else, because they just don't want to hear from them. And that's fine. You're going to raise your children how you're going to raise your children, right? And it's just a matter of, I remember when I started putting my daughters in sports and introducing them to sport, not putting them in sports, but I enter all my daughters to sports, and whatever they decided to do, I allowed them to participate. Along the way, though, I explained to them, when you have a coach, your coach is responsible for your protection and safety. That's why you have a coach, whether it's football, whether it's gymnastics, whether it's cheer, whatever little girls are going to be involved in, right? You're going to have a coach. You're going to have other adults that are going to be responsible for your protection and safety. That's a different situation when it comes to getting your attention than your parents, because your coach is trying to get you for correction, to make sure you don't hurt yourself, to make sure that you're doing the sport correctly. They're trying to teach you the basic fundamentals of team, what a team sportsmanship, what that looks like with other little kids, right? So it's a process. Same thing is if you have a child that's an artist, if they like to draw, they like to play musical instruments, chances are they're going to have a teacher that's in charge of them, right? But they're not the parent. So our kids know the difference, though, right? Being at home with their mother and father is totally different than being away from the house and having another adult correct them. Our kids are smart enough to understand, and they know the difference. They know the difference. So they're not, I just don't believe that most kids are purposely trying to disappoint their parents. And one of the things we learn as parents, as we're rearing our children, like the doctors were saying, there is appropriate times to get the attention of your child, particularly if it's a safety issue, or if it's looking like it's going to be a safety issue. Then, of course, yes, yelling is definitely appropriate to get their attention, to keep them out of harm's way. But to be at home every day, just raising your voice just for the sake of raising your voice, I don't know what that's about with adults. I really don't. And like I said, in these men's groups that I do, I shake my head at a lot of these fathers because they don't think I know what I'm talking about. And, I'm just one of those human beings. I don't force myself on no one. I come with the experience that I come with professionally, as well as raising 4 adult daughters. And I put it on the table. And you're either going to accept it or you're not. And I'm not here, like I said, to tell any father how to raise their kids. But I can tell you, working with children for 30 years, that whole yelling thing, it ain't flying with children. It just isn't. I remember when I was the dean of students, and I'd have kids come in my office and tell me how they hated their parents because they're always yelling at them. And it was crazy to me to, children, some of the personal stories that they would share with me about the relationship that they didn't have with their parents was just, it was shocking. So, I just think that we have an opportunity, fathers, to really shape our daughters when it comes to tone and our delivering of tone. And we have to check ourselves. See, most men don't want to be checked. Most men don't want to check themselves because they think they're right. And they think that if they get checked or have to self-reflect, here comes the male ego. It's not always about a win-win situation or not win-win. It's not always about winning, fathers. It's always about a win-win. I always had win-win situations with my very own daughters, always, because I explained everything to them. I had the patience and the understanding to sit down with my baby girls and explain things to them. And frustration is a part of fatherhood. There's just no way around that. And if you think you're going to get out of that, you're sadly mistaken. You shouldn't have had kids. That's all I can tell you. If you don't think you're going to be frustrated as a parent, you shouldn't have had children. Because when our kids are here, it's not about you. It's about them. And like I said, a lot of fathers push back on me. And I've gotten into some very interesting battles with fathers because when I point out things to them, they ain't trying to hear it. And at the end of the day, they want to be right and they want to make me wrong, which is cool. I got a problem with it. Do you? But I know what works because I work with kids for 30 years. So that's my perspective. That's where I come from. Okay, fathers. Let me get this next video set up. We have a total of 5 videos. I apologize. I said 4, but we actually have 5 videos. Let me get this. Set up for you. Okay. Dads, I hope you're having a wonderful Sunday. And I'm hoping that you're having a great week, or you have great weeks every week with your children. Because parenting is not easy. So, okay, let's get this. All right, Father.
On the subject suggests
Videos
that
number
every time you
3.
want to discipline,
Let me get this to the
parents
beginning.
yell because they want.
Let me get this from the beginning. I want to make sure we get the entire video. Okay, fathers, video number 3.
Parents yell because they want to discipline. Sometimes they yell because they've just lost it, but sometimes there's a calculated yell where we assume we're teaching when we yell. And all of the studies that I've seen suggest that that's not at all the case. The only time that yelling is a good idea, it seems from the research, is when you need to stop a behavior right now because someone's in danger. Your kid's about to run into the street, scream, because you need them to stop running into the street. Angry yelling, especially just to get out your own emotions, it's not good for you and it's not good for your kid. There was one study that found that harsh verbal discipline, yelling at your kids, cursing at your kids, is about as bad as spanking them or beating them. And a lot of parents are really proud of the fact that they don't hit their kids. That should give us pause, that even if we're not hitting our kids, if we're yelling at them regularly, that's about the same thing when it comes to their long-term outcomes. One of the first things that happens, especially if you're yelling in a way that scares him, is a fight or flight response. Like anything else that scares him, his entire body is going to go into defense mode to try to escape or to try to fight you off. That's why a lot of times with little kids who are not at all violent toward their parents, you scream in their face, they'll hit you and they've never hit anybody before. But your body takes over because, oh my God, there's a threat. Or they'll just stand there like a deer caught in the headlights, which is a classic reaction to fear. So the first thing parents need to realize about their screaming is that frequently the scream is terrifying. It's not so much discipline as much as it is kicking in every part of their body that tells them that they're about to be harmed. So even though you would never harm your kid's body hears the scream and goes, that's going to kill me. When it happens regularly, it creates a pattern that sets them on the course for negative long-term effects. They're not going to interpret this as dad is angry. They're going to interpret this, their body at least, is going to interpret this as dad's going to kill me, which is terrifying enough that it should give us pause. And second of all, if you make this a habit, this is going to be how they handle their problems. It's going to be how they talk to other people. And it's ultimately going to cause them a lot of difficulties in their lives. It's terrifying for your kid, especially if your kid's young. And it's not a good thing, and we shouldn't mince words about it. All of the studies available on the subject suggest that every time you yell at your kid, you're doing something that's not good, that if you do over and over again becomes quite damaging. But we have to figure in the human factor. Part of being a parent also is being sleep deprived. Part of being a parent also is having way too many responsibilities on your plate at once. A mixture of fear about what's happening in the moment and fear about what might happen in the long term if this child of yours who cannot control themselves gets out into the world and ruins everything. There's a lot bottled up in there, all combined with the challenges of being a parent. You can't blame a parent for screaming. At the same time, a parent should recognize that it's not a good thing, and you got to cut back on it.
Okay, fathers. That's a good video. And I recognized early in my career as a probation officer when my girls were little, and just being around other parents and just watching and observing other parents. I did a lot of observation when my girls were little, when I would take them to the malls. I could take everywhere I went, I took my daughters with me. I was always a magnet for women because I always had my girls with me, and women, for whatever reason, when my girls were with me, they always wanted to help me with my daughters, because you don't see a lot of fathers with their baby girls by themselves a lot, particularly having 3 or 4 daughters with you at one time. So I just remember having all my daughters with me, and the help that women would offer. And it was more of an appreciation I felt, not so much them trying to tell me what to do as a father, but you just don't see fathers with their daughters a lot of times. And I remember going to the malls. My girls, everywhere I took them, they were just so well behaved. And we had those discussions before we left the house. What is the expectation when we get to the mall? How are we going to act when we go into the Target, when we go into the Kmart, wherever we're at, where we're eating out? There's an expectation. And my daughters all fell in line with that expectation, because I believe when they were little, I explained everything to them. Little girls need to understand why. Women need to understand why. And I always explain why to my daughters. In every case scenario, I explain why. My daughters never left a situation when they had why questions that I didn't explain why. And what I learned is, when you explain why, your tone delivery makes a lot more sense when it comes to your daughters. I learned that from working with children. So tone and delivery, fathers, I'm going to press you. I'm really going to press you. Tone and delivery is going to make the difference of a positive or negative relationship with our baby girls. It just is. You don't have to believe me, but if you don't have a good relationship with your baby girl and she's under 10 years of age and you're struggling, you're going to have to reflect on why you're struggling with your baby girls. Because a baby girl under 10 years old, she's looking at her father for protection and safety, period. So you have to reflect on what is it exactly you may not be doing that is causing this disconnect with your baby girls. That's real. Because once they turn 10, 11 to 13 is a totally different stage. They're in middle school. And if you have a bad, disconnected relationship with your baby girl and she's in middle school, she's going to isolate you. She's going to shut you down as a father, and you're not going to know anything. I can promise you. I was the dean of students for middle school, and I was the dean of students for high school. And I'm telling you, fathers, your daughters will shut you down and shut you out if they don't feel that they could trust you as their dad. It's sad to see that happen. I experienced it all the time with students at my middle school and high school. It was horrible. And when I try to speak to these fathers about it, a lot of these fathers are just they ain't trying to hear it, and they're in denial, and they don't understand, and they're not willing to change. And it gets to a point when they're teenagers, the relationship is broken. They're going to do what they're going to do, and they're going to make their fathers pay. And then fathers are sitting back wondering, well, what the hell happened? Well, you didn't listen to your daughters telling you what their needs were when it came to tone, when it came to delivery. You blew it off. You weren't trying to hear it because you want to be right. And now they're making you pay. And the older they get, the more stubborn and set in their ways they become. So if they shut you out and they're 11, 12, 13, they ain't letting you back in possibly until after they turn adult women, if they ever let you back in. And I'm just saying, fathers, you don't want that relationship. You don't want that disconnect with your daughters. You don't. It's not going to work out for you. Okay? So we have an opportunity. Once again, fathers, I'm going to press tone and delivery. I'm pressing it because I know the tone of our voice and the delivery of that tone is going to make the difference. Don't fight me. Don't fight me on it, dads. I know what I'm talking about here. You may have your own way of doing it. That's cool. Like I said, do your thing. But don't try to fight me on it because I know what works. I've worked with thousands, not hundreds. I've worked with thousands of children in a 30-year period professionally. So I learned a little something, fathers, along the way. All right? And that's what I'm sharing with you is if something's not working and there's a disconnect, we need to be trying something different. Because the sustainability of the relationship with our baby girls is way more important than us being right. I'm telling you. Okay, let's take a look at this next video, fathers. Give me a second to set it up.
The journalist.
This is a shorter video, fathers. It's only a couple minutes long. It's a shorter one. All right, fathers, next video.
The Journal of Psychiatry said that emotional abuse is more predictive of mental illness than either physical or sexual abuse. I thought that was amazing. Came as a shock to me. But then this next piece of research is just plain scary. So screaming at children significantly impairs their brain development. Dr. Alan Shore at the UCLA Neuropsychiatric Institute explains that a number of times all through development, children's brains undergo massive pruning, and that as much as 50% of the brain's 200 billion neurons get pruned a few times throughout their development. And which brain structures ultimately receive the bulk of that pruning has a great impact on their development. So then the way it works is that if you scream at your kids, you keep activating the part of their brain that's the more primal, primitive fight or flight kind of brain, or part of the brain. It's the amygdala and the hippocampus, which is down here, closer to our brainstem, more primal. And so if we keep activating that part of the brain, then it has to create a bunch of neural pathways to react to that, because the kids are learning this isn't a safe environment. So they're constantly scanning. The amygdala is constantly scanning for danger. And so when we scream at them, we're teaching this is a dangerous environment. So then as the brain undergoes its pruning, it has to prune something, but it's learned that that more primal part that's fight or flight needs all those neural pathways. So it ends up pruning more from the front, which is the prefrontal cortex, which is what we want our kids to develop and have strong, because that's thinking about, how's this, like long-term consequences and impulse control, thinking about, what it's going to take to get where they want. We want that part to be really strong. So according to this research, screaming at your kids works to impair their intellectual and emotional development, because we're trying to get them out of this part of their brain and into this part of their brain as much as possible.
Okay, fathers, what you think about that video? And the thing is, fathers, is we most of us men, if we had our fathers in our lives, like I said, my father was murdered when I was almost 3 years old. I was two and a half. If I didn't have my dad. And I know that a lot of us men, right? I had my uncles, and I had
Next tonight, a secret.
I had other good men in my life that were examples to me because I didn't have my father. So they showed me what good men could be and how good men could end up. Now, most of the men in my life when I was growing up, because I played a lot of sports, my coaches and the men that were in my community that when I would go to the recreation center, they were all married men. So I met very few men when I was a child that weren't married men, that didn't have families and kids of their own. So the leadership that I saw from these men that were married, white, black, Latino, Native American, whoever was in my life as an adult male, it was positive. And like I said, they all had wives and they all had their own children. So that's what I saw as a kid, even though I didn't have my father. The men that were in my life, they were good men. I've never had a man take advantage of me, try to take advantage of me, try to harm me, try to put me in harm's way. So all my mentors and all the men that came in my life, they were good men. I can say that. And they made a positive impact on my life where I was able to not only watch them, but I was able to model what I saw with my own daughter. So I've always taken experiences from childhood and what I've learned in my life and being able to apply that to my baby girls. One of the things that I learned as a kid when I was watching these men is I never saw them yelling at their children. I didn't live in their household, but when they were with their children, whenever I was around, I never saw these men yell at their children. So there's just carrots I remember as a kid being around other men, manly men, that helped shape my perspective and help me understand this thing called life. Because when you're a kid, you're learning. But I've always paid attention, fathers of daughters. And I wanted to make sure with my baby girls, I got it right. So I was willing to do whatever it took, research, because I'm a researcher. I'm a legal researcher. I've always looked at studies as my base. There's a lot of studies that are out there that I don't always agree with. So I wouldn't use that information. But the ones that I do agree with that have helped me throughout my life, I implemented that information, and it helped me become a better father. And it helped me build the better relationship with my baby girls, because having daughters was all new to me, just like it's all new to you fathers. But I had to figure it out. And there were no books that were there that were able to help me. My book, Daddy's Girls, excellent book. I believe it's the blueprint to help fathers understand their sense of urgency that we must have. It's available at Amazon.com. You can get it through my YouTube channel. There's a link there. So feel free to purchase it. But I cover the 3 different stages of development in my book. And I talk about a lot of things. My live streams are my live streams. My book is complementary to my live streams. There's a lot of things in my book that I'm not going to discuss through my live streams, because I need you to get my book so you can have an understanding of me, of where I'm coming from. My live streams are my live streams. I'm proud of my live streams. I've been live streaming since July of 2023. This is number 34, I believe. This is my 34th live stream. So I'm feeling great about it. And I'm going to eventually, fathers are going to participate more and more. And I will build that capacity where fathers are going to feel safe. Most of my live streams, fathers don't comment. Fathers may be watching, but they don't say much. And that's to be expected. I understand that. I understand a lot of fathers may not feel safe to be able to come online and express how they're feeling honestly, without being judged about raising their daughters. And because a lot of their wives, or if they're divorced and single fathers, the mothers of their children, can be very, very critical of their rearing their children, because women think that they're right all the time. And that's just not the case. A father has to be allowed to be a father, to figure things out, particularly with little girls. You know, just because you're the mother or you're a woman just like them doesn't mean that the father can't have as much impact. I know I had an incredible impact on my daughter's lives. Had I not been in my daughter's lives, who knows how they would have turned out. They need both parents, is my point. You need your mother and you need your father to help you become a successful child. Whether you're married or you're divorced, you need both parents. Right? So fathers, once again, I'm gonna press our tone and our delivery of our tone when it comes to our daughters. It's critical. It's necessary. We have to get this right, fathers. Otherwise, our daughters, it's not gonna work out. I'm telling you, I know too many men that don't have relationships with their adult daughters, and they're struggling with not having that relationship. Because when your kids, when they decide they ain't fooling with you, you lose. That's all I got to say. The older I get, I ain't got time to be tripping with my daughters. I ain't got time to be having my daughters not wanting to fool with their dad because of some stupid stuff. All right, fathers. So, all right, we have one more video, and then we're going to end this live stream. I appreciate your attention today and being a part of this live stream. If you were able to be a part of it, like I said, you know, I'm not really worried right now. I don't think I'm ever going to worry about fathers' participation in my live streams. I mean, if you participate, you do. But sooner or later, you're going to have to figure out, you're going to need someone like me to help you understand the relationship and the sense of urgency that you need with your daughters. And this is why I live stream every week. I rarely have fathers participate in my live streams, and that's fine. I'm here for one reason and one reason only, to help fathers understand our sense of urgency. And if our fathers participate, cool. If they don't, cool. I'm going to do my live streams every week. This is something I've committed to. I'm at a totally different transition in my life to be able to do this, and I care. Right? I'm a doer. I'm not going to sit back and bitch and complain about fatherhood and what didn't work. And I have a platform now. It's my platform. I'm in charge of it. So this is a great opportunity for me to help all fathers, regardless of their ethnic group and background. And I intend to do so. Okay, fathers, last video.
Next tonight, a secret inside the modern American family. Almost every parent has at one time or another yelled at a difficult child, and tonight there is a new study giving insight into what that can do to everyone when an adult starts yelling. Nightline anchor Cynthia McFadden now with advice for the whole family.
Who can say they've never yelled at their kids, especially their teenagers? A problem the super nanny was often brought in to deal with.
You don't tell me anything. You do what I tell you to do, and you shut your damn mouth about it.
And it's not just reality TV.
I've been having problems with my daughter.
The dads at this fathers group in Keensburg, New Jersey, part of Parents Anonymous, were honest enough to admit it.
How many of you have ever yelled at your child?
But a new study contends even in otherwise loving homes, yelling, especially when it's mixed with name-calling and insults, can cause the same problem for young teenagers as hitting them: depression, anxiety, and low self-esteem.
We are New Age Brady Bunch.
The Johnson-Tuggy clan in Cleveland say they don't curse or use put-downs, but they are a little worried about how much yelling goes on.
I'm a yeller. I yell out of frustration.
Like, hey, grab their attention. This is not cool.
But experts say yelling often doesn't work. Listen to their kids.
Sometimes when I get yelled at, I get angry, go downstairs and start hitting my punching bag, or I feel sad.
I just wish I could get talked to, not necessarily yelled at.
We brought in parenting expert Dr. Carolyn Ivers-Landis.
Hi.
One strategy she suggests is for parents to give themselves a timeout.
Having the other parent who's maybe not pushed to the limit as much, maybe step in a little bit.
I don't think any parent would ever object to having a break.
Another tip, use more carrot, less stick. You want them to get ready for school faster? Promise a movie.
I think there's some things that they could earn, like that camera that he wants so bad.
Right.
Learning to negotiate and keep your cool can make the teen years so much less stressful for everyone.
Or as my mother used to say in a very quiet voice, when you've lost your temper, you've lost your argument. Diane?
Your great mother. But what if you've done it? What if you've already done it? What are you going to do?
Well, I love this advice from parenting experts who say, don't be afraid to apologize to your kids. You don't lose authority. You actually gain credibility. Parents are people too. And if you apologize, they'll know that apologizing is something we do in our family.
So admit it, apologize.
Fess up.
Okay, thank you so much, Cynthia McFadden. Good to have you here.
Okay, fathers, another live stream at Girl Dad YouTube channel. I remember in my book, I discuss negotiations, and I'm not going to go into detail on any of my live streams because there's information in my book that fathers need to understand. And it'd make a lot more sense reading it in my book, being able to compare it to any of my live streams, fathers, because I'm building capacity with my live streams, right? Feeling great about it. But the negotiation piece, I have in my book a father-daughter contract. And let me explain what the father-daughter contract is. The father-daughter contract that I discuss in my book is talking about negotiables and non-negotiables when it comes to our daughters. And let me tell you, fathers, this father-daughter contract that I have in my book, I've been using this contract since 2003. It's been 21 years. I didn't get a chance to use it when I was a probation officer because the children that I was supervising, it was a lot different. I did come up with this contract around the year 2000, 1999, 2000, somewhere around there. So I did try to implement it with some parents when I was a probation officer. And a lot of parents, a lot of fathers, they just weren't interested, which was fine. But when I became a teacher and dean of students, particularly dean of students, a lot more fathers were grateful, and they were a lot more receptive to the father-daughter contract that I presented in my book. And they were just like, they were blown away by how effective the father-daughter contract is and the negotiables and non-negotiables. And I explained that in my book. So if you want to know about it, got to get my book, fathers. That's all I'm going to tell you. I will give you enough information for you to go get the book and check it out for yourself. Right? Okay, fathers. Thank you for your time. Appreciate you, fathers of daughters, girl dads. I'm grinding once a week. I'm here on Sundays at 11 o'clock in the morning. That's my preferred time. And as long as everything goes to schedule, I will be here on Sundays at 11 a.m. Okay, fathers, appreciate you. Keep your heads up. Keep grinding, because that's what we do. Keep them babies protected and safe. And let's get better as fathers. Okay? All right, I appreciate you all. Thank you for having a brother. I'm doing what I do because this is E. Martin, Girl Dad YouTube channel. I'm out until next week. Peace.